Hello.
Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry. Be happy.
Hello. Oh my god, it's almost a 30-minute video. It's crazy. December 14th was the 3-year anniversary of since I was diagnosed. So I figured I would do a video of, how it all started and how it all became this, of my illness that I don't have anymore. So, if you're not interested in that, you don't have to watch it. If you are, it's a long story. So, there you go. That's all this video is, even though that's all it is. It's 27 minutes. And buy the bracelets, please. Jazzy wants you to, right? Say yes. Oh yeah, I want you to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alright, same thing, message me if you bought one or you're buying one, because I'm not going to go check because you guys aren't buying any. If I see you start buying some, I'll go every day, every week, whatever. So message me if you're buying one. If I remember, I'll put the... No, I don't have the thing. Check the other videos for the P.O. box and stuff. And, yeah, make sure you message me when you get one. I know you're all going to buy one, so... Alright, hope you enjoy. I shouldn't talk too long because this is a long video. Alright. Yeah. Okay, bye. Oh, no. Today, we are going to the doctor. Not to our normal doctor. We're going to a kidney doctor. Hopefully to remove one of our pills. And December 14th, a couple days ago, was 3-year anniversary from when I was diagnosed. So today, my mademoiselle right there is going to do like I don't know how to explain, like when I got sick and what happened and the transplant and all that stuff. So, hope you're excited.
Hi everyone. This past week marks a big milestone for Cody. It was 3 years ago, back in 2008, when Cody had his diagnosis of leukemia. So he wanted me to make this video and to talk about how it all started and how it all came about, and quite honestly, I don't even think he's heard the whole story. So it was on a Wednesday night when I first noticed Cody wasn't feeling good, back in December of 2008, and he was playing soccer, which he always did, and his teammates were yelling at him a little more. He didn't seem like he had enough energy. He was losing steam. So I was thinking to myself, you know what, he must be getting sick. So then on Friday, Cody worked at McDonald's. He was at work, and our plan was to go Christmas shopping. At the time, he needed to buy a present for a girl, so I went and picked him up, and I saw him come out from behind the counter, and he was really, really pale, and he said, and I, remember, he said, "Mom, I'm so tired." And I said, "Okay, we'll deal. We'll go get the present." He goes, "I don't even want to eat dinner." He was just very cranky. We did our thing Friday night. He was supposed to play Xbox with a friend. He canceled that, so I was thinking he must really be sick if he's canceling Xbox. And then on Saturday, I said, "All right, you know what, let's go to the doctor. You seem to have a fever." So we go into our pediatrician, and I noticed Cody had 2 little bumps under his armpits, kind of, which now I know were lymph nodes, but he was really like, "I'm not taking my shirt off," he just really irritable. The doctor said, "Okay, the labs are closed. It was a Saturday. If he's not feeling better, you can always take him to the local hospital on Sunday and get his blood work checked. If not, let's plan to do this on Monday." So I had already called in sick for Monday. I was going to take him to the doctor to get the blood work, and Saturday night he woke up. He was having his so-called hallucination type things. It was in the middle of the night, and he was burning up. So Sunday we got up and he said, Mom, you know what, we better go. Let's go get the blood work. So we get ready, take our time, we trek off to Huntington Hospital. It was like a nightmare sitting in the waiting room. There were very sick people and it was just not a pleasant time. So, as I guess any hospital visit is. So, from what I remember that day, all they were doing was just taking his blood. They just kept coming back, taking more blood, and no one was saying anything. And I wasn't thinking anything. My best case, I thought, okay, he probably has mono, because I heard that was going around. We squeezed ourselves into the little hospital stretcher bed and we watched Elf, and we laughed and we were just kind of hanging out together. And finally, like later in the day, like around 5 o'clock, I think the time was, I was like, you know what, let me go see what's going on. So I went out to the nurse's station. They said, well, your doctor's coming in to talk to you. I was like, okay. So still not thinking anything, definitely not thinking leukemia. At the time, I didn't even know what leukemia was. So I see our doctor walk in, and it wasn't the doctor we knew the most at the pediatrician, but I did know her. So I see her walk in, and I could tell the look on her face was like very confused. And I saw her go to the computer. She must have been reading blood results, and she was just shaking her head and had her hand over her mouth. So she came to get me, and she said, we need to go talk, and I need to talk with you. And she had a box of tissues with her. So I honestly don't remember being scared. I was just like, well, that's kind of weird. So we went into this little conference room, which looked like a residence room, little couch and whatever, and she started to tell me, and I honestly don't remember what she told me. I do remember her saying, you want me to tell Cody or I'll tell Cody? And she did say, everything is pointing toward leukemia. And so when we got out, she said she told me what was going to happen, that, the stretcher and the ambulance was waiting, and we were going to be transported to the children's hospital, and the oncologist was waiting there. And as soon as you hear the word oncologist, your world starts to crumble. And so we walk out, and he's laying on a stretcher ready to go, and he's looking at me like, where are we going? And so I kind of told him, and at that time we were both just really numb. I was definitely crying and running in and out and calling my dad and calling Cody's dad, and calling my friends and trying to say, please tell them I'm not going to be in for a while. I don't know what's going on. So I was in my car, followed to Schneider's Hospital, followed the ambulance, and they took us right up to the floor, and we were met by one of our doctors there, Dr. Fine-Levy. And the next thing I remembered was we were in a room, and Cody was receiving blood platelets, blood transfusions, and I remember laying there thinking, oh my God, this is like horrible. He's getting a blood transfusion from all the things you hear about blood transfusions. So we make it through the night. I don't think we slept, and they said in the morning, which was Monday, that they would be doing a bone marrow biopsy, and that would determine if indeed it was leukemia, which pretty much at that point they agreed it was, that it would give us the subtype, and then we would discuss our plan. So as you can imagine, that Monday was very, very hectic, and we were meeting with teams of doctors and social workers and nurses and nurse practitioners, trying to make sense of what all this meant and what it would mean if it was AML, what it means if it's ALL. Those are acute lymphoblastic leukemia. That's what Cody had. There was a bunch of subtypes, B cell, T cell. The T cell being the trickier or harder to treat type. And later in the day, it was confirmed that Cody had the ALL with the T cell subtype. So later in that day, I think a few people came up because the word travels fast, and we were just all in a fog. I know some of my coworkers my good friends came up because they couldn't make sense of anything either, and all the time we were being called out for these meetings and trying to figure out our plan. And so that was on the Monday, and then Tuesday was just testing and all kinds of stuff, and then Wednesday, actually that was ironic, but the Islanders came to the hospital to bring Christmas presents to the patients, and Cody was a huge, and still is a huge Islander fan, and it was just very sad that here he was sitting with an IV pole and in a hospital gown getting a diagnosis of cancer, and this is when he got to see the Islanders. And so he wasn't in the best spirits. We were all very confused and scared, and he went in that afternoon. He had some visitors. I think his uncle was up there. By then his dad had arrived, and he went in for his Mediport and his first round of chemo, because one of the chemos was called intrathecal methotrexate, and that went into his spine. So I remember looking at him laying there on the stretcher in the recovery room, and it's just hard to believe he was, had a Mediport, got chemo, and this was going to be our new life. We stayed at we stayed at Schneider's through that Christmas. Cody's brother came. We actually had Christmas in the hospital room. People brought us dinners, food. I never left. Friends took care of the dogs, and we got what they do is the protocol. They give you so much chemo, so many rounds of chemo, and they check your bone marrow to see how many cancer cells are still there, and they would like you to be at a certain percentage. So the one doctor told us after the 14 days that Cody did meet the requirements, and that he could go home, and that he was responding to chemo. So we went home, had everything cleaned out in his room, and I remember getting in the car and thinking, oh my God, I have this like $1 million glass bubble in my car, and driving I can't even describe it. And so that was like, I guess, a weekend, I'm not even sure. And then we went back for our first visit of blood work and chemo, and we were told that no, it was, the lab report was read wrong. So when we went back for his office visit, we were told that the bone marrow pathology report was actually read wrong, and that Cody wasn't responding where he needed to be. And at this point, they started talking about a bone marrow transplant, which another thing that scared the hell out of us. And Cody's brother was there, and your only chance for a successful bone marrow transplant, your best chance is from a sibling, and even at that, it's only a 25% match, because you get part of your DNA from your mom and part of it from your dad. It doesn't have to do with your blood type. So
sorry about the light.
So
right, there we go.
We went ahead and had his brother tested, which was devastating when we found out he wasn't a match. And we were thinking at this point it was time to search out a better doctor or a better facility, knowing that we got these bad results, and I wanted an expert in the field. So, and knowing that the transplant was in our future, we really needed to find an expert. So we searched out, I don't even know how, we found NYU in Sloan, and we went to both of the hospitals. We interviewed the doctor at NYU, Dr. Carroll, and he was just a sweetheart. He was very knowledgeable, very professional. He spoke to Cody. He knew, it was Cody's care. And we went to Sloan, and we met Dr. Steinhertz. And although we know that Sloan's is the place to be for any cancer, we weren't impressed with that hematologist there. So throughout discussions, and we got a lot of grief from the family, we decided, meaning Cody and I, that NYU was the best doctor and the best care for him. So Dr. Carroll was an expert in the field. He's run protocols. This was his baby. So he wanted to try one last ditch of chemo called Nelarabine. It had some strong side effects. One being paralysis, but he thought maybe this might work. In between, Cody had multiple hospital stays for infections. He had pancreatitis where he wasn't allowed to eat for 10 days. He could not eat anything. So we had some pretty tough times staying at NYU. When we did the next biopsy, we found out that even though Cody got the last chance with the chemo, that he still wasn't where he needed to be. So he definitely would need the transplant.
You can keep talking. I just think it's boring watching you.
So at this point, NYU does not have a transplant center. So at this point, we knew we needed to go to Sloan. We loved NYU and the doctors, the nurses, the nurse practitioners really became friendly and became kind of like a second home to us. But we knew that they couldn't help us with the transplant.
So my mom said that was boring. So
back on me. I don't like the side view of my face with the extra, but we'll go from there. So we made the appointment at Sloan to meet with the transplant team. And we met Dr. Kernan and a really nice nurse practitioner, Heidi, when she's not there anymore, but we still keep in touch with her, as we keep in touch with everyone from Schneider's and from NYU. It's like a real big family out there, and you don't know it until, unfortunately, you're involved. So this was probably around April. Cody was in the registry to try to find a live donor. Weren't having much success. The live donors we found were actually in Spain. I have Italian and Portuguese in me, so I guess some of that was coming out in Cody's DNA. And it was hard to get back from those people, so that wasn't going to be the match. So the next call I got was that they had 2 frozen umbilical cord matches. One was 4 out of 6 and one was a 5 out of 6. And this was a study that they do. They give the patient the 2 cord bloods and one of them will take. They had 2 different blood types, which in the end now Cody's blood type changed because all of his new bone marrow is being made from the donor cells. So we entered the hospital on May 27th to prepare for the transplant, and that entailed a week of intense radiation, total body radiation, 3 times a day. And the last shot was to your testicles, because the chemo can also be there. The cancer can also be there. So it was really hard. We would get up and the radiation was just draining on Cody. The first couple times he vomited. He couldn't even stand there. It was just really painful to watch, and it didn't hurt him. It was just really, really hard. But we did it. We went down 3 times a day, got the radiation. Maybe it took like an hour in total. And on June 4th, we were all set for his transplant. The cells were already there. They arrived frozen, which makes it a little easier when you're doing the transplant, because they could stay frozen and be ready until Cody's body was ready. They knocked all of his counts down to 0. He was high risk of any kind of infection. I had to wear gown mask and gloves and sleep in gown mask and gloves for like 66 days. That was the length of his stay in the hospital. He had some very difficult times in the hospital during this stay. The biggest was probably about a month after the transplant. It was actually, transplant was June 4th, and I remember the day, June 26th. His started asking me kind of weird questions throughout the day. And it was like questions I knew he should know the answers to. I don't remember exactly what they were. And I remember telling our nurse, you get special nurses there that are with you throughout. And I remember telling our nurse, Rayanne, that Cody was asking me these questions. And so by 11 o'clock at night, we tried to go to sleep, and he woke up and he wanted to know why we were here and where was the accident, and totally confused, and just started crying. And I had called the doctors in, and by, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning he was getting MRIs, which show that you have a virus that stays dormant in your body, and when you compromise your immune system, this became rampant, and it was attacking his brain. So he had brain swelling. So we were put in an isolation unit, an observation unit, where we had round-the-clock nurse right there. It's only 3 beds, and we each get a nurse. And that night was horrible because he was so wired, and we had to like pretty much sedate him. I don't even think he knew where he was. He always knew who I was. We would question him things. They videotaped me because this case was so bizarre. They only get a few, maybe 1 or 2 like this a year where the brain works this way. And they kept telling me the brain will heal, and you know, it was really hard to believe that it would. So throughout this hallucination time, you know, Cody was really like, he was pretending he was talking on the phone. He was accusing nurses of stealing his cars. I mean, he was just bizarre. We had to watch the same movie over and over. There were nights he didn't even want me to sleep. He said, no mom, don't lay down, and I wouldn't lay down. And also through this, because it had to deal with his brain, and we were talking about those hallucination type things, the doctors at Sloan cover everything, and they did a bunch of EEGs, I think, or EEGs, I think, or EKG, I'm not sure, on his brain, where they put all those electrode things on his brain to measure the brain waves, and it was determined that Cody was indeed having seizures, and that he got a diagnosis of epilepsy on top of all this. While I was thinking those things happened when he had a high fever, or maybe we thought it was red dye at one time, Sloan confirmed that he had epilepsy. So we started him on medication for that. We were in that unit for 10 days. My dad came up at that time. It was a really hard time for me.
Sorry about the bumpy road. We're in the city now.
Cody's Uncle Jim was a big support and visited us and did what we needed to do. Cody was building one of his race cars in his room at one point when he started to heal, and his uncle was there. So we were in there for 10 days. I believe, yeah, it was 10 days. We got back to our room at Sloan. They actually gave us, on the M94, they gave us the same room. We started to get better. Every day was just a tiny bit better. And I never would believe that his brain would heal, but it surely did. We had more MRIs. He was on an antiviral drug, which I ended up, when he came home, I had to give him IVs, and that was part of it. I'll get to that in a minute. So that led us into July, and I can't remember the exact day of when he left, but it was 66 days in the hospital through numerous complications, through not eating. They found out he had GVHD, which is graft versus host disease, and that's when the body rejects the new grafting of the new cells. And he had it. You can have it of the skin, the gut, or the liver, and Cody had it of the gut, and boy did he ever. He had that for probably a good year and a half. His body was fighting it. We got him through that got him through what he needed to, got him settled, got his counts up a little bit so he could go home. Now, being that we live so far away, Cody, they recommended that we stay in the Ronald McDonald House for like for a week. And we went back to the hospital every day. So we moved all of our stuff into the Ronald McDonald House, which was pleasant. Unfortunately, they were undergoing construction. Excuse me. And we weren't allowed to cook in the kitchens, and that's what makes it so nice there. But Cody wasn't eating too much, and he had very few things he was craving, and thank God for Uncle Jim living a few blocks away would make Cody his hamburgers burned with pickles. That seemed to be the thing he liked for that week. So we stayed there that week. We trekked back and forth to the hospital daily with a wheelchair. I pushed him through the city. Thank God it was warm and we were able to do that. We took some trips in the city. We went to a movie once. We went to the Museum of Natural History. We tried to make the best of it. We would just sit in a park. After a week at the Ronald McDonald House, we were able to come home. Our good neighbors and friends, Sue and Emily, came and picked us up, and we moved all of our stuff into the van. And we started our life at home, which, consisted of me dealing with his central line and changing dressings and IVs and feeding pump, and I became a nurse. Oh, and don't let me forget the diabetes. He had steroid-induced diabetes, so I was giving him insulin shots and checking his blood sugars, and I had my gloves on, my mask. We had a nurse that came to the house at times, and we did it, and we were still trying to get those cancer support bracelets out. People were doing fundraisers for us. We met some amazing people from some amazing foundations. My school, my colleagues, the community, they just were phenomenal to us, and we really couldn't have done it without them. We still had a lot to do at home. We still trekked to the city sometimes twice a week. We had many hospital stays, many endoscopies, colonoscopies, bone marrow biopsies, Metaports, PIC lines, central lines, infections, fevers. And Cody's thing was he could never wake up in the morning and be sick. He would have to have me going at like 3 in the morning in the middle of a snowstorm. That's when we needed to go. We had a couple scares with ambulance rides. But now, we look back and here it is 3 years, and he's amazing. He stays positive. He's, every day is a milestone. Every day we move closer to him getting better. He's cancer free. His blood type changed. He's all new donor blood. And like Cody said, when we woke up on Thursday, that was starting the 4th year. He said, today is the first day of the rest of my life. And that's what my dad says, and that's what we live by. And we met so many great people along the way. Some of them we feel very bad that they didn't make it, almost like a guilty feeling, kind of, in a weird way, that we made it. And we keep in touch with other cancer families. It's a big support to all of us. And, we're on our way. We go back once a month, once every 6 weeks. We're moving toward the long-term appointments or the long-term doctors, so we don't have to go all the time, and things are just moving in the right direction for us, and we thank God every day, and we hope to God that they find a cure for cancer and stop this nightmarish disease from affecting so many people in this world today. Thank you for listening, and here's Cody.
Alright, I think that was long enough for this video, so I'll see you in the next one. And buy the bracelets!